For centuries, Zen masters have used simple stories to reveal extraordinary truths. Tonight, I will share some of those stories with you. Within them are lessons about peace, patience, letting go, and seeing the world with clearer eyes. And as these stories unfold, you may find your thoughts becoming quieter, your breathing becoming slower, and the weight of the day beginning to fade. So make yourself comfortable, adjust your pillow, let your body sink gently into the bed, take one slow, deep breath, and as you exhale, allow yourself to leave the noise of the day behind. For the next few hours, there is only this moment, only these stories, and the quiet path that lies ahead. Let us begin. Long ago, in a mountain village hidden among pine forests and drifting mist, there lived an old monk who carried a lantern every night. The villagers had grown accustomed to seeing him. As evening settled across the valley and the last traces of daylight faded behind the mountains, the monk would emerge from the temple gates with a small paper lantern glowing softly in his hand. Night after night, year after year, he followed the same narrow path through the forest. The path wound between ancient pines, crossed a small wooden bridge, and disappeared into the darkness beyond the village. No one knew exactly where the monk went. Some believed he walked to a shrine deep in the mountains. Others thought he simply wandered beneath the stars. Whatever the reason, he always returned before dawn. And always with the lantern. One autumn evening, a traveller arrived in the village. He had spent many weeks crossing valleys and mountain roads. His boots were worn thin from walking, and dust clung to the hem of his robe. As he rested outside a small tea house, he noticed the old monk beginning his nightly journey. The lantern glowed like a tiny star against the darkness. Curious, the traveller watched him disappear among the trees. The next evening, he watched again, and the evening after that. By the fourth night, his curiosity had grown too strong to ignore. As the monk passed by, the traveller stood and bowed politely. "Master," he said, "may I walk with you?" The old monk smiled. Of course. Together they entered the forest. The night was calm. A cool breeze moved gently through the pine branches overhead. Somewhere in the darkness, water flowed over smooth stones. The lantern cast a small circle of golden light onto the path before them. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The traveller found the silence strangely comforting. Eventually, he glanced at the lantern. "Master," he asked, "how long have you walked this path?" "A very long time, and yet you still carry a lantern." "Yes, but surely you know the path by now." The monk nodded. "I do." "Then why carry a lantern?" The old monk continued walking for a while before answering. When they reached a small wooden bridge crossing a stream, he stopped. The lantern's reflection trembled softly in the water below. Then he turned toward the traveller. "When we began our walk," he asked, "did you know the way?" The traveller shook his head. "No, and if I had carried no lantern, I might have lost the path." The monk smiled. "Then perhaps the lantern was never for me." The traveller fell silent. The words were simple, yet they lingered in the cool night air long after they had been spoken. The old monk resumed his walk. The lantern swayed gently with each step. Its light did not reveal the entire forest. It did not illuminate the distant mountains. It showed only enough for the next few steps. And somehow, that was enough. As they continued through the darkness, the traveller thought of all those he had met along the way. Strangers who had shared a meal, farmers who had offered directions, wanderers who had pointed him toward a safer road. None of them had changed his entire journey, yet each had helped him take one more step. Perhaps wisdom was often like a lantern, not a great light that revealed everything at once, but a small light that appeared when it was needed most. Above them, The stars shone quietly between the branches. Below, the stream continued its endless song among the stones, and for the first time in many months, the traveller felt no need to hurry toward tomorrow. The night itself felt complete. The old monk never spoke of great truths. He never claimed to possess special knowledge. He simply carried his lantern through the darkness. And perhaps that was lesson enough. Far below, the village lights flickered softly in the valley. The wind moved through the pines, and the lantern continued to glow. Our next story follows a traveller who spent many years chasing the moon across mountains and valleys, believing that happiness waited somewhere just beyond the next horizon. It is called The Traveller Who Followed the Moon Many Years Ago. In a valley surrounded by distant mountains, there lived a traveller who was never satisfied with where he was. No matter how beautiful a place might be, he always believed something better waited beyond the horizon. When he stood in a peaceful village, he imagined a happier life in the next town. When he reached the next town, he dreamed of the cities beyond the mountains, and when he crossed the mountains, his thoughts wandered toward lands he had never seen. His life became a journey without end. People often admired him. They spoke of his courage and his adventures. They listened eagerly as he described distant rivers, towering forests, and ancient temples hidden among the peaks. Yet despite all he had seen, a quiet emptiness followed him wherever he went. One evening, after many years of wandering, the traveller found himself walking alone along a mountain road. The sun had already disappeared behind the western hills. A cool wind moved through the grass. Above him, the moon rose slowly into the sky. It was unusually large and bright that night. Its silver light washed across the valleys and hills like water. The traveller stopped walking and gazed upward. The moon seemed close enough to touch. Beautiful, perfect for a moment, he stood in silence. Then a thought entered his mind. What would it be like to stand directly beneath the moon? The idea was foolish, and yet it fascinated him. Looking toward the distant mountains, he noticed that the moon appeared to rest just beyond them. Perhaps, he thought, if he walked a little farther, he could reach it. So he continued along the road. Hours passed. The moon remained ahead. When he reached the mountains, it seemed to have moved farther away. Now it rested above another ridge in the distance. The traveller laughed softly. Then he kept walking. Surely it could not remain beyond his reach forever. The next day he followed the moon again, and the day after that. Each evening it appeared before him. Always distant, always beautiful, always just beyond the next horizon. Weeks passed, then months. The traveller crossed rivers. He climbed mountains. He walked through forests where sunlight barely touched the ground. Still the moon remained ahead of him. One evening he arrived at a remote mountain temple. The temple stood alone among ancient pine trees. Its wooden walls had weathered countless winters. Small lanterns glowed softly beneath the eaves. The traveller climbed the stone steps and knocked gently upon the gate. An elderly monk welcomed him inside. That evening they shared a simple meal of rice and tea. Afterward they sat together beneath the stars. The moon hung brilliantly above the mountains. The traveller looked at it and sighed. The monk noticed. "You seem troubled," he said. The traveller smiled. "Perhaps I am." The monk waited patiently. For a while neither spoke. At last the traveller said, "For many months I have followed the moon." The old monk chuckled softly. "I can see that." The traveller looked surprised. "You can?" The monk nodded. "Your boots tell the story." The traveller laughed. Then he grew serious once more. "No matter how far I travel, it remains ahead of me. Every time I think I am close, it moves farther away. The monk lifted his cup of tea. Steam drifted into the cool night air. Then he asked a simple question. "Have you enjoyed the journey?" The traveller blinked. "The journey?" "Yes, the forests you crossed, the rivers you followed, the mountains you climbed." "Did you enjoy them?" The traveller thought for a moment. "I suppose I did." "And the people you met?" "Many were kind." "And the places you visited?" "Beautiful," the monk nodded. "Then why are you disappointed?" The traveller looked toward the moon. "Because I never reached it." The old monk smiled. Perhaps that was never its purpose. The traveller remained silent. The monk continued. "The moon has guided travellers for thousands of years. It has illuminated roads, rivers, and mountain paths. It has inspired poets and comforted wanderers." He looked toward the sky. But the moon was never meant to be possessed. The wind moved softly through the pines. The lanterns flickered gently beside the temple walls. The traveller stared upward. For the first time, he considered the possibility that the moon's value had never depended on reaching it. Its beauty existed precisely because it remained where it was. Quiet, distant, untouched, the monk took another sip of tea. "Some things in life are like the moon," he said. "The more we chase them, the farther away they seem." The traveller knew exactly what he meant. For years he had chased happiness. He had searched for the perfect destination, the perfect experience, the perfect future, always believing it waited somewhere ahead, always believing he would finally feel complete once he arrived. Yet each destination eventually became another starting point. Each achievement led to another pursuit. Each horizon revealed another horizon beyond it. The moon had simply shown him what he had been doing all along. For a long time, neither man spoke. They sat together beneath the silver light, listening to the wind, watching the stars, feeling the quiet presence of the mountains around them. And gradually, something inside the traveller began to soften. The road behind him no longer seemed unfinished. The road ahead no longer seemed urgent. For the first time in many years, he felt no need to arrive anywhere. The moon remained where it had always been, and somehow that felt perfectly right. Late into the night, the traveller sat beneath the stars, not chasing, not searching, simply watching. And in doing so, he discovered a peace that had followed him all along. A peace that had never been waiting beyond the next mountain. A peace that had been quietly walking beside him the entire time. Above him, the moon continued its journey across the sky. Unreachable, beautiful, and complete. Our next story tells of a small stone hidden inside a traveller's sandal, and how the smallest burdens often become the heaviest when carried for too long. It is called "The Stone in the Sandal." There once lived a traveller who prided himself on his endurance. He could walk farther than most men. He could endure rain, heat, cold, and long stretches of lonely road without complaint. While others rested, he continued. While others stopped, he pressed forward. Over the years, this became a source of quiet pride. He believed strength meant enduring discomfort without hesitation. One spring morning, he left a small village nestled beside a river and began following a narrow path toward the mountains. The sky was clear. Birds sang among the trees. The road wound gently through fields covered in wildflowers. It seemed the perfect day for walking. For the first few hours, everything was peaceful. Then, sometime before noon, he felt a small stone slip into his sandal. It was nothing more than a pebble. Tiny and insignificant. He felt it pressing lightly against the sole of his foot. The traveller considered stopping. He could easily remove it. The task would take only a few seconds, but he glanced ahead at the road and decided it was not worth the trouble. "It is only a small stone," he thought. "I have endured far worse." So he continued walking. At first, the stone caused only minor discomfort, a slight irritation, barely noticeable. Yet with every step, it rubbed against his skin. As the hours passed, the irritation slowly grew. The traveller found himself thinking about it more often. Soon he was adjusting his stride to avoid the discomfort. Then he began favouring one foot over the other. The simple pleasure of walking gradually disappeared. The stone occupied his attention. The mountains became less beautiful, the birds less noticeable. Even the fresh spring air seemed less enjoyable. The pebble was still small, yet somehow it had become the centre of his experience. By late afternoon, he was in a foul mood. The path seemed longer than usual, the hills steeper, the sun hotter. Everything irritated him. When a farmer passing with a cart greeted him kindly, the traveller barely responded. When children waved from a nearby field, he ignored them. His thoughts remained fixed upon the stone. Eventually he reached a small grove of trees beside a stream. There he found an old man sitting beneath the shade of an oak tree. The old man appeared to be doing nothing at all. He simply sat quietly, watching the water flow over the rocks. The traveller nodded politely and sat nearby. His foot throbbed. The old man glanced at him. "You seem troubled." The traveller sighed. "It is nothing," the old man smiled. "If it were truly nothing, it would not trouble you." The traveller looked away. For a moment he considered explaining. Then he laughed softly. "A stone found its way into my sandal this morning." The old man nodded. "And why not remove it?" The traveller looked slightly embarrassed. "I intended to, but it seemed too small to matter." The old man chuckled. The traveller removed his sandal and finally shook out the pebble. A tiny grey stone fell onto the ground. It was smaller than a fingernail. The old man looked at it. Then he looked at the traveller. "You carried this all day?" The traveller stared at the pebble. Now that it sat on the ground, it seemed ridiculous. Such a tiny thing, such a small burden, and yet it had shaped his entire day. The old man picked up the stone and rolled it gently between his fingers. "It is strange," he said. "We often imagine that large burdens are the most difficult to carry." The traveller listened quietly, but often it is the small ones that stay with us longest. The stream continued flowing nearby. A gentle breeze moved through the leaves overhead. The old man placed the stone beside him. "Most people know how to recognize great suffering," he continued. "They notice grief, they notice loss, they notice heartbreak." The traveller nodded. "Yet many spend years carrying smaller things." The old man pointed toward the pebble, a harsh word spoken long ago, a disappointment never released, a small resentment, a regret, an old argument, something that seemed too insignificant to address. The traveller stared at the stone. The old man's words felt strangely familiar. He thought about the many grievances he carried, the old disappointments he revisited in quiet moments, the mistakes he replayed again and again, the conversations he wished had gone differently. None of them were enormous, yet together they occupied a surprising amount of space within him. The old man smiled. The trouble with small stones is not their weight. The traveller looked up. It is how long we choose to carry them. For a while neither spoke. The traveller listened to the stream. The water flowed effortlessly around every obstacle in its path. It did not cling to fallen branches. It did not hold on to stones. It simply continued onward. As evening approached, the sunlight softened into gold. The traveller placed his sandal back on his foot. Without the stone, it felt remarkably comfortable. The relief was immediate. He almost laughed. Such a small thing, such a simple solution. yet he had carried the discomfort for an entire day. Before leaving, he bowed to the old man. "Thank you." The old man nodded. Then he returned his attention to the stream. The traveller continued down the road. The mountains ahead seemed beautiful once again. The birds sang, the wind felt cool against his skin, and as he walked he wondered how many invisible stones people carried through their lives. Small burdens, old worries, tiny irritations, things that might have been released long ago. Above him, clouds drifted slowly across the evening sky. The road stretched peacefully into the distance, and with each step the traveller felt a little lighter than before. Behind him, the stream continued its endless journey toward the sea, and somewhere beneath the old oak tree, a tiny grey pebble remained exactly where it belonged. Our next story takes us to a quiet garden where a devoted gardener discovers that beauty is often found not in perfection, but in the things we cannot keep. It is called The Garden of Fallen Leaves. In a quiet valley, surrounded by rolling hills, there lived an old gardener who was known throughout the region for maintaining the most beautiful garden anyone had ever seen. Travellers often changed their routes simply to visit it. Poets wrote about it, painters tried to capture it, and children would stand beside its wooden gate, peering through the gaps in the fence to glimpse the colourful flowers beyond. Yet what surprised visitors most was not the beauty of the garden itself. It was the gardener. Whenever people arrived expecting to meet a proud man eager to display his accomplishments, they instead found someone remarkably calm. He spoke little, he moved slowly, and he treated every flower, tree and stone with quiet care. One autumn morning, a young student arrived, hoping to learn the secret behind the famous garden. The student had travelled many miles to meet the old gardener. When he finally reached the valley, he found the gardener kneeling beside a narrow path, gently sweeping fallen leaves from the ground. The student bowed. "Master," he said, "I have come to learn how you created such a beautiful garden." The old gardener smiled. "Then stay a while." The student expected lessons about rare flowers and special techniques. Instead, the gardener handed him a broom. Together they spent the morning sweeping pathways and removing weeds. The next day they watered plants. The day after that they trimmed branches. Weeks passed. The student grew impatient. He had expected wisdom. Instead he was doing chores. One afternoon, unable to contain himself any longer, he finally asked, "Master, when will you teach me the secret of the garden?" The gardener paused. "The secret?" "Yes, the reason people travel so far to see this place." The old man looked around quietly. Then he smiled. Tomorrow, the student felt relieved. At last, he thought, the real lesson would begin. That evening a strong wind arrived. It swept down from the mountains and moved through the valley. Branches swayed. Leaves danced through the air. By morning, the garden was covered in fallen leaves. Golden leaves, red leaves, amber leaves. They rested upon the pathways, beneath the trees, and among the flowers. The student looked around in horror. Weeks of careful work appeared ruined. The gardener, however, seemed completely unconcerned. After breakfast, they began cleaning. Together they swept every path. They gathered every leaf. They worked steadily from morning until late afternoon. By sunset, the garden looked perfect once again. The pathways were spotless, the flower beds neat. Not a single leaf remained. The student smiled with satisfaction. Now, he thought, the garden looked exactly as it should. The gardener slowly walked to the centre of the garden. He looked around carefully. Then he nodded. Good. Without warning, he walked beneath a large maple tree. He reached up and gently shook one of its branches. A handful of leaves drifted downward. Then he shook another. More leaves floated through the air. The student stared in disbelief. The gardener continued until dozens of leaves lay scattered across the garden. Golden leaves rested along the pathways. Red leaves settled among the flowers. Amber leaves gathered beside the stones. When he finished, he stepped back and smiled. "There," he said softly. "Now it is complete." The student could hardly believe what he was seeing. "Complete?" he asked. "We just spent the entire day removing those leaves." The gardener nodded. "Yes, then why put them back?" The old man looked toward the maple tree. Because the garden was too perfect. The student frowned. He did not understand. The gardener slowly sat beside a stone lantern. After a moment, he gestured for the student to join him. Together they watched the evening light settle across the valley. At last the gardener spoke. When people try to create perfection, they often remove life along with it. The student listened carefully. "The leaves belong here." The gardener pointed toward the scattered colours. "They are part of autumn. They remind us that seasons change. They remind us that nothing remains the same." A gentle breeze moved through the trees. Several more leaves drifted lazily to the ground. The gardener smiled as he watched them fall. Many people spend their lives trying to hold on to things exactly as they are. The student remained silent. They want youth to remain. They want happiness to remain. They want every beautiful moment to last forever. The gardener looked toward the mountains. But nothing in nature lives that way. The student followed his gaze. Clouds drifted slowly across the sky. Shadows moved across the hills. The leaves continued their quiet descent. Everything was changing, even now. The gardener picked up a fallen leaf. Its edges glowed gold in the evening sunlight. "If these leaves never fell," he said, "would spring feel as precious?" The student thought about this. For the first time he wasn't sure. The old man placed the leaf gently back upon the ground. "We love blossoms because they fade. We cherish sunsets because they end. We treasure moments because they pass." The valley grew quieter as evening approached. Birdsong softened. The air became cooler. The student sat quietly beside the gardener. As he looked across the garden, something had changed. The scattered leaves no longer appeared messy. They appeared natural. Alive, beautiful in a way perfection never could be. The old gardener never spoke of grand philosophies. He never delivered long lectures. Instead, he allowed the seasons to teach. The trees to teach. The falling leaves to teach. And sitting there, beneath the fading light, the student finally understood. Beauty was not found in preserving everything exactly as it was. Beauty was found in appreciating things as they changed. Around them, autumn continued its quiet work. Leaves drifted from the branches. The evening sky darkened. And the garden became more beautiful with every passing moment. Our next story follows a traveller who arrives at a river he believes impossible to cross, only to discover that many of the obstacles we fear exist only in our imagination. It is called "There Once Lived a Traveller Who Was Known for Being Cautious." Before taking any step, he wanted certainty. Before choosing a road, he wanted to know exactly where it would lead. Before beginning any journey, he preferred to hear every possible warning and every possible danger. This habit had protected him many times, but it had also prevented him from doing many things he wished to do. One summer afternoon, he found himself walking through a broad valley, where tall grass swayed beneath a warm breeze. The sky was clear. The mountains stood blue and distant against the horizon. The road ahead seemed peaceful, yet as he continued walking, he noticed something troubling. Several travellers heading in the opposite direction appeared unusually serious. One by one, they passed him. Each offered a similar warning. Be careful ahead. There is a river. The crossing is difficult. The current is strong. The traveller thanked them and continued, but with each warning, his concern grew. By the time the fifth traveller mentioned the river, he had already begun imagining the worst. Perhaps the river was deep. Perhaps the current was dangerous. Perhaps people had drowned there. His mind filled with possibilities. As the afternoon wore on, the river seemed to grow larger in his imagination. Long before he reached it, he had already convinced himself it would be a serious obstacle. The road eventually entered a forest. Tall cedar trees lined the path. Sunlight filtered through the branches in shifting patterns. Birdsong echoed softly among the trees. Yet the traveller noticed none of it. His attention remained fixed on the river he had not yet seen. The more he thought about it, the more anxious he became. What if there was no bridge? What if the water was too deep? What if he could not cross at all? Soon he was imagining turning back. The valley behind him suddenly seemed safer, more familiar. Perhaps, he thought, the wiser choice would be to avoid the river altogether. Yet something inside him resisted. He had already come this far, so he continued. Late in the afternoon he reached a small clearing. There, sitting beneath a cedar tree, was an old woman weaving a basket. She worked slowly and peacefully. Her hands moved with practiced ease. The traveller stopped beside her. "Excuse me," he said. The woman looked up and smiled. "Yes, I've heard there is a river ahead." "There is. Is it dangerous?" The old woman thought for a moment. Then she shrugged. Sometimes the answer did little to comfort him. He sat down nearby. "What do you mean sometimes?" The woman continued weaving. "Some people cross easily, others struggle." The traveller frowned. "That doesn't help very much." The woman laughed softly. "No, I suppose it doesn't." For a while neither spoke. The traveller watched her work. The basket slowly took shape beneath her hands. There was something calming about her presence. She seemed completely untroubled. Finally, he asked another question. "Have you crossed the river yourself?" "Many times. And were you afraid?" The old woman nodded. "The first time." The traveller leaned forward. "And what happened?" She smiled. "I crossed." The simplicity of the answer made him laugh despite himself. The woman laughed too. Then she pointed toward the forest path. "The river is not far now." The traveller thanked her and continued on his way. As evening approached, he finally heard it. The sound of flowing water. His heart quickened. For hours he had imagined this moment. The great river, the difficult crossing, the dangerous current, the obstacle that had occupied his thoughts all day. The trees began to thin. The sound grew louder. At last he stepped from the forest and saw the river before him. Then he stopped and blinked. The river was there. But it was nothing like he had imagined. The water reached only to his knees. The current was gentle. Smooth stones were visible beneath the clear surface. A child could have crossed it. The traveller stood in silence. For several moments he simply stared. Then he began laughing. The sound echoed across the water. All day he had worried. All day he had imagined disaster. All day he had suffered beneath the weight of possibilities that existed only within his mind. Yet the river itself was peaceful, ordinary, almost welcoming. He removed his sandals and stepped into the water. It was cool against his skin. The current moved softly around his legs. Within moments he stood on the opposite bank. The crossing was over. The obstacle that had consumed his thoughts had required less than a minute. The traveller sat beside the river as the sun began to set. Golden light danced upon the water. The forest behind him grew quiet. And there, beside the river, he thought about all the invisible rivers he had faced throughout his life. The conversations he feared having, the decisions he postponed, the journeys he delayed, the opportunities he avoided. How many of them had been like this river? How many had appeared enormous from a distance, only to reveal themselves as manageable once approached? A cool breeze drifted across the water. The traveller smiled. The old woman had been right. Some people crossed easily. Others struggled. The difference often had little to do with the river itself. As darkness slowly settled across the valley, he continued along the road. His steps felt lighter, not because the world had become less uncertain, but because he had finally noticed how often his imagination created obstacles larger than reality. Behind him, the river flowed quietly beneath the fading light. Ahead, the road disappeared into the evening, and for once the traveller felt no need to know exactly what waited around the next bend. Our next story follows an old tea seller whose simple life held a secret that many wealthy men spent their entire lives searching for. It is called The Tea Seller's Secret in a small village nestled between green hills and winding streams. There lived an old tea seller. His shop stood beside a quiet road that connected several distant towns. Travellers passed by every day. Merchants stopped to rest their horses. Farmers paused for a warm drink before returning to their fields. Pilgrims sat beneath the shade of the tea seller's awning and listened to the gentle sound of water flowing nearby. The shop itself was simple. Its wooden walls had faded from years of sun and rain. The roof leaned slightly to one side. The tables were old and worn smooth by countless hands, yet people often remarked that it felt strangely peaceful there. No one could quite explain why. Perhaps it was the scent of tea leaves drifting through the air, perhaps it was the quiet stream beside the road, or perhaps it was the tea seller himself, for he was always smiling. Not a broad smile. Not the kind that demanded attention, just a calm expression that seemed untouched by worry. Year after year, people noticed the same thing. No matter the season, no matter the weather, no matter how busy or quiet the day became, the tea seller remained content. One summer afternoon, a wealthy merchant arrived at the shop. His caravan stretched far down the road. Several servants accompanied him. His clothing was made from fine fabrics imported from distant cities. Rings decorated his fingers. Gold thread shimmered along the sleeves of his robe. The merchant entered the tea shop and sat near the window. The tea seller greeted him warmly and prepared a fresh pot of tea. As he worked, the merchant watched him closely. There was something unusual about the old man, something difficult to describe. At last, curiosity overcame him. "You seem happy." The tea seller smiled. "I suppose I am." The merchant leaned forward. "That surprises me." The tea seller poured tea into a small cup. "Why?" The merchant gestured around the shop. "You live here every day." The old man nodded. "You serve tea." "Yes, you see the same road, most days." The merchant shook his head. "I've travelled across kingdoms, I've seen great cities, I've built businesses, I've earned wealth." Yet despite all of that, he seemed troubled. The tea seller noticed. The merchant continued. "Still, I rarely feel satisfied." He looked around the small shop. "And yet you seem completely at peace." The tea seller placed the cup before him. Steam rose slowly into the afternoon air. The merchant took a sip. The tea was simple, yet surprisingly good. For a while, neither man spoke. Outside, travellers moved along the road. Birds sang among nearby trees. The stream continued its quiet journey over smooth stones. Finally, the merchant asked the question he truly wanted answered. "What is your secret?" The tea seller laughed softly. "I have no secret." The merchant frowned. "You must." The old man shook his head. "No, but everyone can see it." The tea seller sat down across from him. Then he looked out the window toward the road. "Tell me," he said, "when you were young, what did you want?" The merchant smiled. Success, and after you achieved it, more success. The tea seller nodded. And then? The merchant thought for a moment. More, the old man smiled kindly. Of course. The merchant stared into his cup. The answer felt uncomfortably accurate. The tea seller continued. When I was young, I wanted a tea shop. The merchant looked up. And now? I have one. The merchant blinked. The answer seemed too simple. Surely life was more complicated than that. The tea seller appeared to read his thoughts. I do not mean that I achieved everything I ever wanted. The merchant listened carefully. There are still things I enjoy, things I appreciate, things I hope for. The old man poured more tea, but I stopped making my happiness wait for them. Outside, a breeze stirred the leaves of a nearby tree. The merchant remained silent. The tea seller pointed toward the stream. When that stream reaches the river, it does not suddenly become water. The merchant looked toward the water. It already is. The old man smiled. Many people live as though happiness exists somewhere ahead. They believe it waits beyond the next achievement, the next purchase, the next destination, the next season of life. The merchant lowered his gaze. How many years had he spent doing exactly that? Always chasing, always building, always reaching towards some future moment when he would finally feel complete. Yet every success had only created another goal. Every destination had become another starting point. The tea seller lifted his cup. This tea is warm. The merchant nodded. The afternoon is pleasant. Again, the merchant nodded. The birds are singing. The old man smiled. What more does this moment require? For a long time, the merchant had no answer. The road outside remained busy. Travellers came and went. The world continued moving exactly as it always had. Yet something about the tea shop felt different now. Perhaps it was not the shop at all. Perhaps it was the way the tea seller looked at life. Without hurry, without constant longing, without the feeling that something essential was missing. The sun slowly descended toward the hills. Golden light filled the room. The merchant finished his tea. When he finally stood to leave, he felt strangely lighter. The problems of his life had not disappeared. His responsibilities remained. His ambitions remained, yet something had shifted. As he prepared to leave, he turned back toward the tea seller. Will I ever learn your secret? The old man smiled. You already heard it. Then he returned to preparing tea. The merchant stood quietly for a moment before laughing softly to himself. Outside, the evening breeze moved through the trees. The stream continued flowing beside the road, and as the merchant resumed his journey, he found himself paying attention to things he had not noticed in years. The warmth of the sun, the sound of birds, the rhythm of his own footsteps. Simple things. Things that had always been there. Things he had been too busy chasing the future to see. Behind him, the little tea shop grew smaller in the distance, and inside, the old tea seller continued serving tea. Content, as always. Our next story tells of a lonely pine tree growing high upon a cliff, and how true strength is often found not in resisting life's storms, but in learning when to bend. The pine tree on the cliff high above a rugged coastline where steep cliffs overlooked the endless sea, there stood a solitary pine tree. It had grown there for as long as anyone could remember. Travellers sailing along the coast often noticed it. Fishermen used it as a landmark. Villagers pointed to it whenever storms rolled in from the ocean. The pine tree stood alone near the edge of the cliff. No other trees grew nearby. The winds were too strong. The soil was too shallow. The winters too harsh. Yet somehow, the pine endured. Season after season, year after year, the tree became famous throughout the region. People admired its strength. Its roots clung stubbornly to the rocky cliffside. Its trunk remained upright despite countless storms. To many, it seemed unbreakable. One spring, a young monk arrived in the coastal village below. He had spent several years studying in distant temples and was eager to learn more about life and wisdom. During his stay, he often heard villagers speak about the pine tree, the strongest tree in the world, one fisherman called it. "It fears nothing," said another. The monk grew curious. One morning, he climbed the winding path leading toward the cliff. The journey was steep. Seabirds circled overhead. Far below, waves crashed against dark rocks. Eventually he reached the summit. There stood the pine tree. The monk was impressed. Its branches stretched toward the sea. Its bark bore scars left by years of wind and weather. It looked ancient, timeless. The monk sat nearby and spent the afternoon quietly observing it. As evening approached, clouds began gathering over the ocean. The wind strengthened. The sea darkened. A storm was coming. The monk considered returning to the village. Yet curiosity persuaded him to stay. He found shelter among nearby rocks and waited. By nightfall, the storm had arrived. Powerful winds swept across the cliff. Rain lashed against the earth. The waves below crashed with tremendous force. The monk watched as the pine tree swayed violently. Its branches bent. Its trunk leaned. Again and again the wind pushed against it. The monk felt uneasy. Surely, he thought, no tree could endure such punishment forever. For hours the storm continued. The wind screamed across the cliffside. The rain fell relentlessly. Yet through it all, the pine tree remained standing. Not rigid, not unmoving, but bending, yielding, flowing with the storm. By dawn, the winds had finally subsided. The clouds drifted away. Sunlight returned to the sea. The monk emerged from his shelter. The pine tree still stood. Its needles glittered with drops of rain. Its branches swayed gently in the morning breeze. Amazed, the monk approached. There he noticed something surprising. Nearby lay the remains of several smaller trees. Broken branches, splintered trunks, roots torn from the earth. They had not survived the storm. Yet the pine tree remained. The monk sat quietly beneath its branches. As he did, an old fisherman appeared on the path, carrying a bundle of nets. The fisherman greeted him warmly. "You stayed through the storm?" The monk nodded. "I wanted to see what would happen." The fisherman smiled. "And now you understand." The monk looked toward the pine. "Understand what?" The old fisherman sat beside him. "Most people believe that strength means resisting." The monk listened. "They think strength means standing firm against everything." The fisherman pointed toward the broken trees. Those trees fought the storm. Then he pointed toward the pine. That one danced with it. The monk gazed at the tree. The fisherman continued. When the wind pushed, it yielded. When the storm demanded space, it gave space. It never stopped being a tree. But neither did it insist on remaining perfectly still. The sea sparkled beneath the morning sun. The monk thought carefully about the fisherman's words. How often had he done the opposite? How often had he resisted change? Resisted disappointment? Resisted uncertainty? Whenever life became difficult, he tightened his grip. He tried to control things, to force outcomes, to hold everything exactly as it was. Yet those moments often brought the greatest suffering. The fisherman smiled. People admire the pine because it survived the storm. He shook his head. But it survived because it understood the storm. The monk remained silent. A gentle breeze moved through the branches overhead. The pine swayed softly, not from weakness, from wisdom. The fisherman eventually stood and gathered his nets. Before leaving, he offered one final thought. The strongest things in nature are rarely the most rigid. Then he continued down the path toward the village. The monk remained beneath the pine tree for much of the day. He watched the branches move with the wind. He listened to the waves below. And gradually, he began seeing strength differently. Not as resistance, not as stubbornness, but as the ability to adapt without losing oneself. The ability to bend without breaking. The ability to move with life's seasons rather than against them. As evening approached, the monk finally rose to leave. Before departing, he placed a hand upon the rough bark of the pine tree. The tree had survived countless storms, not by conquering them, not by defeating them, but by understanding something simple. The storm would eventually pass. The wind would eventually grow calm. And until then, bending was wiser than breaking. Far below, the sea continued its endless rhythm. Above, the pine tree swayed gently against the fading sky. And for the first time, the monk felt grateful for every storm he had ever faced, for each had taught him something he could not have learned beneath clear skies. Our next story follows a monk who spent years counting tomorrow's worries before discovering that tomorrow had never asked for his attention at all. It is called The Monk Who Counted Tomorrow. In a quiet monastery, hidden among mist-covered hills, there lived a monk who worried more than anyone else. He worried about the weather. He worried about the harvest. He worried about the condition of the temple roof before the rainy season arrived. When winter approached, he worried about the cold. When spring arrived, he worried about storms. And when the sky was perfectly clear, he worried about what might happen if it changed. The other monks found him kind and hard-working, but they also noticed that his mind was rarely at rest. Even during meals, he seemed distracted. Even during meditation, his thoughts wandered toward future problems. One evening, after a long day of work, the monks gathered in the courtyard to watch the sunset. The mountains glowed with shades of gold and crimson. Birds returned to their nests. The air was cool and peaceful. Yet while everyone else admired the evening, the worried monk sat frowning. An older monk noticed. "What troubles you?" The younger monk sighed. "The firewood. The firewood? We may not have enough for winter." The old monk looked around. It was the middle of summer. The younger monk continued. "If the winter is harsh, we may run short. And if we run short, we may become cold. And if we become cold, people may become sick." The old monk listened patiently. Then he nodded. "I see." The next morning, the older monk approached him with a small cloth bag. Inside were 100 smooth pebbles. The younger monk looked confused. "What are these for?" The old monk smiled. "Carry them with you." The younger monk frowned. "Why?" "Each morning, place one pebble in your pocket, and each time you worry about tomorrow, move it to the other pocket." The younger monk thought the exercise strange, but he respected the older monk and agreed. The first day began well. After breakfast, he placed a single pebble in his left pocket. Then he began sweeping the monastery courtyard. For a while, everything was peaceful. Then, a thought appeared. What if it rains tomorrow? He moved the pebble to his right pocket. A few minutes later, another thought arrived. What if the vegetable garden does not grow properly next season? Again, he moved the pebble. Soon another concern appeared. Then, another, and another. By midday, he had forgotten which pocket the pebble belonged in. His mind had become a steady stream of future worries. That evening, he returned to the older monk. "I do not understand." The old monk smiled. "Continue." The next day, the same thing happened. And the day after that. As the weeks passed, the younger monk became increasingly aware of how often his thoughts abandoned the present moment. While eating, he worried about future meals. While gardening, he worried about future harvests. While resting, he worried about future work. His body remained in one place. His mind wandered somewhere else entirely. One afternoon he was gathering water from a nearby stream. The sunlight danced upon the surface. Dragonflies drifted above the water. The forest was alive with birdsong. Yet he barely noticed any of it. His thoughts remained occupied by things that had not happened. As he walked back toward the monastery, he suddenly stopped. The realization arrived quietly. The stream had been beautiful. The afternoon had been peaceful. And he had missed it completely. Not because anything was wrong, but because he had been living inside tomorrow. That evening he sat beneath a pine tree and watched the sky darken. For once he made no attempt to solve the future. He simply watched. Clouds drifted overhead. The first stars appeared. A cool breeze moved through the branches. The world seemed remarkably calm. The next morning he approached the older monk. "I think I understand." The old monk smiled. "Do you?" The younger monk nodded. "I spend more time living in tomorrow than I do living in today." The old monk poured tea into 2 small cups. Steam rose gently between them. Most people do. The younger monk stared into his tea. "But tomorrow feels important." "It is. Then why should I stop thinking about it?" The older monk laughed softly. "I did not say stop thinking about it." The younger monk looked up. The old monk continued. "There is a difference between preparing for tomorrow and living inside it." Outside, a breeze moved through the monastery courtyard. The older monk pointed toward the open doorway. "Tomorrow will arrive whether you worry about it or not." The younger monk listened carefully. "But today arrives only once." For a long moment, neither spoke. The younger monk considered all the days he had spent worrying about futures that never happened. Storms that never came. Problems that never appeared. Disasters that existed only in imagination. How many peaceful afternoons had he sacrificed for worries that proved unnecessary? How many sunsets? How many conversations? How many quiet moments? The old monk lifted his cup. "When tomorrow arrives," he said, "meet it then." The younger monk smiled. The words were simple, yet they felt lighter than anything he had carried in years. From that day forward, he still planned for the future. He still gathered firewood. He still tended the garden. He still prepared for winter. But he no longer allowed tomorrow to steal today. And little by little, his mind grew quieter, not because life became predictable, but because he stopped trying to live days that had not yet arrived. As the seasons passed, the monastery remained much the same. The mountains stood silently beyond the valley. The stream continued its journey through the forest. The sun rose, the sun set, and each morning brought enough to occupy a single day. No more, no less. The monk eventually learned that peace was rarely found in controlling tomorrow. More often, it was found in fully inhabiting today. And there, in the quiet rhythm of ordinary days, he discovered a contentment that had been waiting for him all along. Our next story follows a fisherman who found himself lost in a thick ocean fog and discovered that not seeing the entire path is often part of the journey. It is called "The Fisherman and the Fog On the edge of a quiet coastal village lived a fisherman who knew the sea better than most men knew their own homes. For nearly 40 years he had sailed the same waters. He knew where the fish gathered. He knew where the currents changed. He knew how the sea looked before a storm and how it looked afterward. The ocean had become as familiar to him as the lines upon his hands. Yet despite all his experience, there was one thing he never liked. Fog Whenever thick fog rolled in from the sea, a sense of unease settled over him. The familiar coastline disappeared, the distant hills vanished, even nearby boats became little more than shadows. The sea itself seemed transformed. What had once felt known suddenly felt uncertain. One autumn morning, the fisherman awoke before sunrise. The village remained silent. Most windows were dark. The air carried the scent of salt and seaweed. As he stepped outside, he immediately noticed the fog. It was everywhere, a pale blanket stretching across the harbour and beyond. The world seemed softer. Quieter, hidden, the fisherman stood for a moment, considering whether to remain ashore. Yet the weather was calm, the sea was gentle, and he needed to fish, so he prepared his boat and pushed away from the dock. Within minutes, the village vanished behind him. The fog swallowed everything. The fisherman could see only a short distance ahead. The familiar landmarks that usually guided him were gone. The cliffs, the lighthouse, the distant hills, all hidden. Only the sound of water against the boat remained. As he moved farther from shore, an old feeling returned. Doubt. What if he drifted too far? What if he lost his way? What if the fog became thicker? The sea around him seemed endless. His hands tightened around the oars. For a while he considered turning back. Yet something stopped him. He listened carefully. The sea remained calm. The boat moved steadily. Nothing was actually wrong. Only his certainty had disappeared. So he continued. Slowly, patiently, following the rhythm of the water. Hours passed. The fog remained. Sometimes it seemed thinner, sometimes thicker. Yet the fisherman noticed something unexpected. The more he stopped fighting the uncertainty, the calmer he became. His attention shifted. Instead of worrying about what he could not see, he began paying attention to what was present. The sound of the waves, the movement of the boat, the direction of the breeze, the cry of distant seabirds, small things. Things he normally overlooked. Around midday, he heard another boat nearby. A faint voice called through the fog. "Can you see the shore?" The fisherman laughed. "No, neither can I." For a moment, both boats drifted quietly. Then, the unseen fisherman spoke again. "I don't like this." The old fisherman understood. Years earlier, he would have felt exactly the same. But now, sitting alone upon the water, something had changed. "Neither do I," he replied. "But the sea doesn't seem troubled by it." Silence followed. Then the distant fisherman laughed. Soon the sound faded as the boats drifted apart. The old fisherman smiled to himself. The fog remained exactly as it was, yet somehow it no longer felt like an enemy. Later that afternoon, he lowered his nets. The sea remained hidden. The horizon remained hidden. The future remained hidden, yet the work continued. The fish still swam beneath the water. The tide still moved. Life continued whether he could see everything or not. As the day wore on, the fisherman found himself reflecting upon his own life. How often had he demanded certainty before taking action? How often had he wanted to see the entire path before taking the first step? How often had fear appeared simply because the future was unclear? The fog, he realised, was not very different from life itself. No one could see very far ahead. No one truly knew what tomorrow would bring. Yet people continued moving forward. They raised families, started journeys, planted gardens, built homes, made friends, all without knowing exactly how things would unfold. Perhaps certainty had never been the requirement he imagined it to be. Late in the afternoon, a breeze began moving across the water. Slowly, the fog started to lift. Shapes emerged. First the outline of distant rocks, then the cliffs, then the familiar coastline. The fisherman watched as the world gradually revealed itself once again. It felt almost magical. The village appeared in the distance. The lighthouse stood proudly against the sky. Everything he had been unable to see all day had been there the entire time. Waiting, unchanged, the fisherman smiled. The fog had hidden the shore, but it had never removed it. As he guided his boat home, the sea shimmered beneath the afternoon sunlight. The village grew larger. The harbour came into view, and with each passing moment he felt a little wiser than when the day had begun. Not because he had learned something complicated, but because he had finally accepted something simple. There would always be fog. There would always be moments when the path ahead could not be seen. Moments when certainty disappeared. Moments when answers remained hidden. Yet life asked us to continue anyway. One careful step, one gentle stroke of the oar. One day at a time. The fisherman reached the harbour shortly before sunset. The fog had vanished completely now. The sea looked calm and familiar once again. But he knew something had changed. The next time the fog arrived, he would greet it differently. Not with fear, not with frustration, but with patience. For he now understood that not seeing the entire journey did not mean he was lost, and often the path revealed itself only to those willing to keep moving. Our next story follows an ancient temple bell that had not rung in many years, and the lesson its silence taught to those who came searching for wisdom. It is called "The Bell That Never Rang Deep Within a Mountain Valley Stood an Ancient Temple." The temple had existed for so long that no one could remember exactly when it had been built. Generations of monks had lived there, generations of travellers had visited. The wooden halls had weathered countless winters. The stone pathways had been worn smooth by thousands of footsteps, and overlooking it all stood an enormous bronze bell. The bell hung beneath a wooden tower near the centre of the temple grounds. It was beautiful. Its surface was covered with faded carvings. Ancient symbols spiralled around its sides. Stories and prayers from another age rested upon its weathered bronze. Yet despite its beauty, there was something unusual about the bell. It never rang, not during ceremonies, not during festivals, not even at dawn. Year after year, it remained silent. Visitors often asked about it. The monks always smiled, but rarely offered an explanation. One spring, a young scholar arrived at the temple. He had spent years studying philosophy and religion. He carried several books with him and possessed a mind filled with questions. Above all else, he wanted understanding. When he first saw the great bell, he was fascinated. Its silence seemed mysterious. Surely, he thought, there must be a reason. During his first evening at the temple, he asked one of the monks, "Why doesn't the bell ring?" The monk smiled. It has no need. The answer only increased his curiosity. The next day he asked another monk. The response was similar, and the day after that, another no one would explain. The bell remained silent. As the days passed, the scholar became increasingly distracted by it. While walking through the temple grounds, he thought about it. While eating, he thought about it. Even during meditation, his attention wandered back to the bell. What secret was it hiding? One afternoon, unable to contain his curiosity any longer, he approached the temple's oldest monk. The old monk was sitting beneath a cherry tree, watching petals drift through the air. The scholar bowed respectfully. "Master, I must ask about the bell." The old monk smiled. "Of course. Why does it never ring?" The monk looked toward the tower. For a while he said nothing. Then he pointed toward a nearby bench. "Sit," the scholar obeyed. Together they sat beneath the tree. The wind moved softly through the branches overhead. Petals floated lazily to the ground. Minutes passed. Then more minutes. Neither spoke. Eventually the scholar shifted uncomfortably. He waited for an explanation. None came. The old monk simply sat, watching, listening, being at last the scholar could bear it no longer. "Master?" The old monk turned toward him. "Yes? Aren't you going to answer my question?" The monk smiled gently. "I already am." The scholar frowned. He did not understand. The old monk pointed toward the valley. "Listen." The scholar listened. At first he heard very little. The wind, birdsong, the distant sound of water. Nothing unusual. The monk remained silent, so the scholar listened more carefully. Gradually he noticed other sounds. Leaves rustling, bees moving among flowers, a stream flowing somewhere beyond the trees, the creaking of old wooden buildings. Far away, a bird called from the forest. The valley was alive with sound, yet somehow it all felt peaceful. The monk spoke softly. "What do you hear?" The scholar described the sounds. The monk nodded. "And before?" The scholar hesitated. "I don't know." "You were thinking." The scholar lowered his gaze. It was true. The old monk smiled. "Most people arrive here carrying noise inside them." The breeze stirred the cherry blossoms once more. "They seek wisdom. They seek peace. They seek answers." The scholar listened carefully, but they are so busy searching that they fail to notice what is already present. The monk looked toward the silent bell. For many years, travellers came hoping to hear it ring. The scholar followed his gaze. They imagined the sound would reveal something important. The monk nodded. But eventually, they discovered something else. "What?" The old monk smiled. The silence. For a long time, neither spoke. The scholar looked around the temple grounds. The bell tower stood quietly beneath the afternoon sky. The mountains surrounded the valley. The wind continued moving through the trees. Nothing extraordinary was happening. And yet the moment felt strangely complete. The monk continued. "A bell draws attention because it interrupts silence." The scholar nodded. But silence itself is often overlooked. The old monk closed his eyes. And yet it is always there. The scholar sat quietly. For perhaps the first time since arriving at the temple, he stopped searching for a hidden meaning. He stopped analysing, stopped comparing, stopped trying to solve the mystery. Instead, he simply listened. The sounds came and went. Birds sang. The wind passed through the trees. The stream flowed endlessly somewhere in the distance. Between each sound existed a quiet stillness, a spaciousness he had never noticed before. The bell suddenly seemed different. Its silence was not an absence. It was part of the lesson. Perhaps the bell had been teaching all along, not through ringing, but through remaining still. The afternoon slowly faded toward evening. Golden light settled across the temple grounds. The scholar and the old monk remained beneath the cherry tree. Neither felt the need to speak. The question that had troubled him for days no longer seemed important. The answer had arrived quietly. Not through explanation, not through knowledge, but through attention. As darkness settled across the valley, the first stars appeared overhead. The great bell remained silent, just as it had for years. And somehow, that silence felt more beautiful than any sound it could have made. Our next story follows a woman carrying an empty basket who travelled from village to village, searching for something she believed she had lost long ago. It is called The Empty Basket. In a village surrounded by golden fields and gentle hills, there lived a woman who carried an empty basket wherever she went. The basket was woven from willow branches and showed signs of many years of use. Its handle had been repaired several times. Its sides were worn smooth by countless journeys. Yet despite its age, the woman never replaced it. Every morning she left her small cottage carrying the basket on her arm. Every evening she returned with it still empty. The villagers often wondered why. Some assumed she gathered herbs in distant meadows. Others believed she collected rare flowers from the hills. A few thought she simply enjoyed walking. But no one truly knew. One day, a young traveller arrived in the village. He had spent months wandering from place to place and was always eager to hear unusual stories. Before long, he heard about the woman and her basket. Curious, he decided to speak with her. The next morning, he found her walking along a narrow path that led through the countryside. The basket hung from her arm as always. He greeted her politely. "Good morning." She smiled warmly. "And a good morning to you." The traveller glanced at the basket. "I hope you don't mind my asking, but where are you going?" The woman looked toward the hills. "I'm searching." The traveller nodded. "For what?" The woman considered the question. Then she answered softly, "For something I lost many years ago." The traveller immediately became interested. "What did you lose?" The woman smiled. "I wish I knew." The answer surprised him. "You don't know?" She shook her head. "No," the traveller laughed. "Then how will you know when you found it?" The woman simply continued walking. The traveller followed. Together they crossed fields painted with wildflowers. They passed streams sparkling beneath the morning sun. They climbed gentle hills where the wind moved through tall grass like waves across the sea. Along the way, they spoke of many things. The traveller shared stories from distant towns. The woman listened with quiet interest. At midday they stopped beneath a large oak tree. The traveller noticed that the basket remained empty. Not a single flower, not a single herb, nothing at all. Finally, he asked again, "Have you truly been searching all these years?" The woman nodded. "For nearly 20 years." The traveller was astonished. "And you've never found what you're looking for?" She smiled. "No," the traveller shook his head. "It seems like a waste." The woman laughed softly. Perhaps it should have offended her. Instead, she seemed amused. "A waste?" "Yes," the traveller gestured toward the empty basket. 20 years of searching, and still nothing. The woman gazed toward the distant hills. Then she asked a question. "Do you enjoy your travels?" The traveller smiled. "Very much." "What are you searching for?" The traveller paused. He had never thought about it that way. "I suppose I'm searching for new experiences." "And have you found them?" "Many," the woman nodded. "And after finding them?" The traveller thought for a moment. "I continue travelling." The woman smiled knowingly. The traveller suddenly felt as though the conversation had shifted. He wasn't entirely sure how. The afternoon passed as they continued walking. Eventually they reached a meadow overlooking the valley below. The woman sat down among the grass. The traveller sat beside her. For a while they simply admired the view. Clouds drifted lazily across the sky. Birds circled overhead. The village appeared small and peaceful in the distance. At last the traveller spoke. "May I ask something?" "Of course. Do you really believe you've lost something?" The woman remained quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Many years ago I believed I had." The traveller listened. "When I was young, I thought happiness existed somewhere else." The wind moved gently through the meadow. "I thought it was waiting in another town, another season, another stage of life." The traveller remained silent. The words felt familiar. "So I began searching." The woman looked down at the empty basket resting beside her. "For years I believed I was missing something important." The traveller glanced at the basket. "And now?" The woman smiled. "Now I carry the basket to remind myself." "Remind yourself of what?" She looked out across the valley. "That the basket was never empty." The traveller frowned. He looked directly into it. It appeared completely empty. The woman seemed to notice. "You see an empty basket?" The traveller nodded. "I see 20 years of sunrises, 20 years of walks through fields, 20 years of conversations, 20 years of mountains, rivers, forests, and quiet afternoons." The traveller sat very still. The woman gently touched the basket. "I spent years searching for happiness." A warm breeze crossed the meadow. Eventually I discovered that happiness had been travelling beside me the entire time. The traveller looked toward the valley. For a moment he thought about his own journeys, the destinations he chased, the places he hoped would finally satisfy him, the future moments he imagined would complete his life. How often had he overlooked what was already present? The woman stood and lifted the basket once more. The afternoon sun painted the hills in shades of gold. Most people think they are searching for something. The traveller rose to his feet. "Aren't they?" The woman smiled. Sometimes she looked toward the winding path leading home, and sometimes they're simply learning to see what has been there all along. Together they began walking back toward the village. The basket swung gently at her side. Still empty, yet somehow fuller than before. As the sun slowly descended toward the horizon, the traveller found himself looking at the world differently. The fields seemed brighter, the breeze felt softer, even the road beneath his feet seemed more beautiful, and for the first time in a long while he felt no urgency to search for anything at all. Our next story follows a small sparrow living upon the roof of an ancient temple, and the unexpected lesson it taught a scholar who believed wisdom could only be found in books. It is called "The Sparrow on the Temple Roof. At the edge of a quiet forest stood an ancient temple. Its wooden halls had weathered centuries of rain and sunlight. Its stone paths wound through gardens of moss and pine. In spring, cherry blossoms drifted across the courtyards like pale pink snow. In autumn, golden leaves gathered beneath the temple gates. Monks came and went. Travellers visited, seasons changed, yet the temple remained. Among those who visited was a young scholar. He had spent many years studying. His room was filled with scrolls and books. He could recite teachings from memory. He knew the words of philosophers, poets, and wise men from distant lands. People often praised his knowledge, and secretly, he took pride in it. One summer, he journeyed to the ancient temple, hoping to deepen his understanding. He imagined long conversations with enlightened monks. He expected hidden teachings and profound wisdom. When he arrived, however, he found something unexpected. The monks were kind, but they rarely discussed philosophy. Most of their days were spent tending gardens, carrying water, preparing meals, and sweeping paths. The scholar found this disappointing. Surely, he thought, wisdom must be something greater. One morning, while walking through the temple courtyard, he noticed a small sparrow perched upon the roof. The bird hopped from one wooden beam to another. It chirped cheerfully. Then it flew away. The scholar barely paid attention. After all, it was only a bird. The next day he saw it again, and the day after that. Each morning the same sparrow appeared. It perched upon the temple roof, sang its song, and went about its day. Eventually the scholar mentioned it to one of the older monks. "The sparrow seems very attached to this temple." The monk smiled. Perhaps the scholar laughed softly. "At least it appears happy." The monk nodded. It does. For some reason, the answer irritated him. The bird was a bird. What wisdom could possibly be found there? Days passed. The scholar continued his studies, yet he often found himself frustrated. The answers he sought seemed forever beyond reach. Every lesson raised new questions. Every book revealed new uncertainties. The more he learned, the more incomplete his understanding felt. One afternoon, He sat alone beneath a pine tree, reading an old scroll. The words were difficult, the ideas complex. For hours he struggled to understand a particular passage. Again and again he reread it. Still the meaning escaped him. Eventually, frustrated, he closed the scroll. As he sat there, he heard a familiar sound. The sparrow. It had landed nearby. The little bird hopped through the grass searching for seeds. Then it flew to a stone lantern, then to a low branch, then back to the ground. The scholar watched it absent-mindedly. The sparrow seemed completely occupied with what it was doing. When it searched for seeds, it searched. When it rested, it rested. When it sang, it sang. Nothing more, nothing less. The bird appeared entirely present. The thought surprised him. As the afternoon continued, he found himself observing the sparrow instead of returning to his studies. The bird seemed unconcerned with tomorrow. It carried no regrets about yesterday. It did not compare itself to other birds. It did not worry whether it was successful. It simply lived. Fully, naturally. The scholar remained beneath the tree long after the sparrow had flown away. That evening he approached the elderly monk once more. "May I ask you a question?" "Of course." The scholar hesitated. Then he spoke. "Can a bird be wise?" The old monk laughed softly. "A bird is simply a bird." The scholar frowned. The answer seemed incomplete. The monk noticed. Then he continued, "But sometimes a bird sees what a scholar overlooks." The younger man sat quietly. The monk poured tea for both of them. Steam rose between them. Outside, evening settled gently across the temple grounds. The old monk spoke again. "You spend much of your time searching for understanding." The scholar nodded. "Yes, and has it brought you peace?" The question caught him off guard. He considered it honestly. "No," the monk smiled kindly. "Knowledge is valuable." He lifted his cup. "But many people mistake knowledge for wisdom." The scholar listened carefully. "Wisdom is not always found in collecting more." The monk gestured toward the courtyard. "Sometimes it appears when we stop reaching and begin noticing." A breeze moved through the open doorway. Somewhere outside, the sparrow sang. The scholar turned toward the sound. For the first time, he truly listened. The song was simple, brief, ordinary, yet somehow beautiful. The monk smiled. The sparrow does not know great theories. It has never studied philosophy. It has never read a single book. The scholar couldn't help smiling. That's true. And yet it greets each morning completely. The young scholar stared into his tea. Slowly, something began to shift within him. For years he had treated life as something to solve, something to understand completely before he could enjoy it. Yet the sparrow asked for no such certainty. It simply met each day as it arrived. The evening grew darker. Lanterns glowed softly around the temple grounds, and for the first time since arriving, the scholar felt his mind become quiet. Not because he had found every answer, but because he had stopped demanding them. Outside, the sparrow settled upon the temple roof once more. The stars emerged overhead, and the ancient temple rested peacefully beneath the night sky. Our next story follows a traveller walking a long mountain road who becomes so focused on reaching his destination that he forgets to notice the journey itself. It is called The Mountain Path. There was once a traveller who dreamed of reaching the highest peak in a distant mountain range. From childhood, he had heard stories about it. The mountain stood far above all others. Its summit touched the clouds. Its slopes overlooked valleys, forests, rivers and villages stretching beyond the horizon. Those who reached the top spoke of breathtaking views and a feeling of deep peace. The traveller decided that one day he would stand there himself. For many years he prepared. He studied maps. He gathered supplies. He listened to the advice of experienced climbers, and when the day finally arrived, he began his journey with great determination. The path began in a valley filled with wildflowers. A clear stream wound through the grass. Birds sang among the trees. But the traveller paid little attention. His eyes remained fixed upon the distant peak. Every step was measured against how much closer it brought him to his goal. As morning turned to afternoon, he continued climbing. The path passed through a beautiful forest of cedar and pine. Sunlight filtered through the branches in golden beams. Small deer moved quietly between the trees. The scent of earth and moss filled the air, yet the traveller hardly noticed. The forest was not his destination. The mountain peak was. So he continued. Days passed. The road wound through valleys and along ridges. It crossed streams and climbed steep hills. Sometimes the traveller encountered others along the way. An old shepherd tending sheep, a woman gathering herbs, a family resting beneath a tree. Most greeted him warmly, some offered food or conversation, but he rarely stayed long. There was always another mile ahead, always another turn in the path, always the mountain waiting in the distance. One evening, after a particularly long day, the traveller arrived at a small mountain hut. An elderly man lived there alone. Smoke drifted from the chimney. A lantern glowed softly beside the doorway. The old man welcomed the traveller inside and offered him a simple meal. As they ate, the old man asked where he was headed. "The highest peak," the traveller replied proudly. The old man smiled. "A worthy journey." The traveller nodded. "I've dreamed of it for years." The old man poured tea into 2 cups. "Have you enjoyed the road so far?" The traveller looked surprised. "The road?" "Yes," the traveller shrugged. "I haven't really thought about it." The old man chuckled softly. "Most people don't." The traveller did not understand what he meant. The next morning he thanked the old man and continued his climb. The path grew steeper. The air became cooler. Clouds drifted across the mountainsides. The traveller pressed onward. Weeks passed. At times the journey became difficult. Rain soaked his clothing. Strong wind slowed his progress. Several times he considered turning back, yet his determination never wavered. The summit remained his focus. One afternoon, while crossing a narrow ridge, he encountered a young boy sitting beside the trail. The boy appeared perfectly content. He was watching clouds drift through the valley below. The traveller stopped briefly. "Are you lost?" The boy laughed. "No, then why are you sitting here?" The boy pointed toward the clouds. "Because they're beautiful." The traveller glanced at them, then toward the peak. "I don't have time." The boy smiled. The traveller continued walking, yet as he climbed higher, he found himself thinking about the boy and the old man. Both had asked questions that seemed strangely similar. Neither appeared concerned with reaching anywhere. Neither seemed hurried. Weeks later, after a long and exhausting climb, the traveller finally reached the summit. The stories had been true. The view was magnificent. Mountains stretched endlessly in every direction. Rivers shimmered in the distance. Clouds drifted beneath him. The world seemed vast and peaceful. The traveller stood there for a long time. At first he felt triumphant, proud, satisfied. He had achieved his goal. He had reached the highest peak. But as the hours passed, another feeling emerged. A quieter feeling. One he had not expected. He realised that the moment was already passing. Soon he would begin the journey down. Soon the summit would become a memory. And then something surprising happened. As he looked across the mountains, he found himself remembering not the peak, but the path, the cedar forest, the streams, the shepherd, the herb gatherer, the old man in the hut, the boy watching clouds, moments he had barely noticed at the time. Yet now they seemed precious. The traveller sat upon a stone and watched the sunlight move across the valleys below. At last he understood. The summit had been beautiful, but it was only a small part of the journey. The path had been the greater gift. Every conversation, every sunrise, every forest, every challenge, every step. For years he had imagined that fulfillment waited at the destination. Yet much of life's richness had been scattered along the road itself. The mountain had not taught him this lesson from its peak. It had been teaching him from the very first step. He had simply been too focused on arriving to notice. As evening approached, golden light spread across the landscape. The traveller smiled. Tomorrow he would begin the journey home. But this time, he promised himself something. He would pay attention to the rivers, to the forests, to the people, to the road beneath his feet. For the path was not merely something to endure until reaching the destination. The path was the destination. And perhaps it always had been. Our next story follows a single cherry blossom that blooms later than all the others, teaching a village an unexpected lesson about time, beauty, and letting go. It is called The Last Cherry Blossom Inn, in a village nestled between gentle hills and winding streams. There stood a grove of cherry trees that people travelled great distances to see. Every spring, the trees transformed the valley into a sea of pale pink blossoms. The villagers eagerly awaited their arrival each year. Children ran beneath the flowering branches. Artists filled sketchbooks with delicate petals. Poets searched for words capable of capturing their beauty. For a few brief weeks, the entire village seemed touched by magic. Then, as always, the blossoms drifted away, carried by the wind, scattered across roads, rooftops, and rivers, leaving behind only memories until the following spring. Among the villagers lived an elderly woman who visited the grove every morning. She had done so for many years, long enough to watch generations of children grow into adults, long enough to see countless springs arrive and disappear. Each morning she carried a small wooden stool to the grove. There she would sit quietly beneath the trees and watch the blossoms. Most people assumed she simply enjoyed the view. In truth, her visits had become something deeper. A ritual, a reminder, a way of greeting the changing seasons. One spring, the blossoms arrived earlier than usual. The village celebrated. The trees bloomed beautifully. For days the grove was filled with laughter and visitors. Yet as quickly as the blossoms appeared, they began to fall. Strong winds arrived from the mountains. Petals filled the air like drifting snow. Soon the branches stood bare once again. The villagers sighed. The season was over. Children returned to school. Travellers continued on their journeys. The grove grew quiet. But when the elderly woman visited the following morning, she noticed something unusual. At the far edge of the grove stood a single tree, and upon one of its highest branches remained a solitary blossom. Just one. Every other flower had fallen, yet somehow this one remained. The old woman smiled. The next morning she returned. The blossom was still there. The morning after that, it remained. Word gradually spread through the village. People came to see it, a single blossom lingering after all the others had disappeared. Some called it stubborn, others called it lucky. Children called it brave. Days passed. The blossom continued holding to its branch. Visitors often stood beneath the tree gazing upward. Many wondered how long it would last. One afternoon, A young man approached the elderly woman as she sat beneath the grove. He pointed toward the blossom. "Do you think it will survive?" The woman smiled. "No." The young man looked surprised. "Then why do you keep coming here every day?" The old woman looked toward the blossom. "Because it won't." The answer confused him. The woman noticed. Then she patted the grass beside her. The young man sat. Together they watched the blossom move gently in the breeze. "It is beautiful," she said. "Yes, it is precious." The young man nodded. The old woman smiled. "And do you know why?" He looked up at the flower. "Because it is rare?" Partly. The breeze moved through the grove. The blossoms swayed softly. "Because it will not remain." The young man fell silent. For a while neither spoke. The grove was peaceful. Birds sang among distant trees. The stream beyond the village flowed quietly toward the valley. The old woman finally continued. "When I was younger, I wanted beautiful things to last forever." The young man listened. "I wanted spring to remain. I wanted happy moments to remain. I wanted the people I loved to remain." The smile on her face softened. "But life does not work that way." The young man lowered his gaze. He knew this. Everyone did. Yet hearing it spoken aloud felt different somehow. The old woman pointed toward the blossom. "If this flower never fell," she paused, "would we be standing here admiring it?" The young man considered the question. Perhaps not. After all, the grove had once held thousands of blossoms. Yet it was this final one that drew their attention. Not because it was better, but because it was fleeting. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the branches overhead. The blossom seemed almost luminous against the blue sky. The young man watched it carefully. For the first time, he understood that its beauty and its fragility were inseparable. One existed because of the other. Several days later, a storm arrived. Dark clouds gathered over the hills. Rain swept across the valley. Strong winds moved through the grove. The villagers remained indoors. The old woman sat beside her window listening to the storm. She knew what would happen. By morning, the winds had passed. The sky was clear once more. The elderly woman carried her stool to the grove, as she always did. The young man was already there. Together they looked toward the tree. The blossom was gone. For a moment neither spoke. The branch where it had rested now stood empty. The season had finally ended. The young man sighed. The old woman smiled, not sadly, not happily, simply peacefully. After a while she pointed toward the ground. There, resting among the grass, lay a single pale petal. The young man stared at it. The old woman nodded gently. It was beautiful. Yes, it was enough. The breeze moved through the grove. Fresh green leaves had already begun appearing among the branches. Spring was ending. Summer was approaching. Life continued. The old woman rose from her stool. As she walked back toward the village, she felt grateful. Not because the blossom had remained, but because it had not. Its brief presence had reminded her of something she often forgot. The most precious things are rarely the things we can keep, and perhaps that is exactly why we cherish them. Our next story follows a man who spent years drawing water from a village well, only to discover that the thing he was searching for could never be found at the bottom of a bucket. It is called The Well at the Edge of the Village. At the edge of a quiet village stood an ancient stone well. No one knew exactly how old it was. Some said it had been there before the first houses were built. Others believed it had been dug by travellers long forgotten by history. Whatever its origins, the well had served the village faithfully for generations. Its stones were worn smooth by countless hands. Its wooden bucket had been repaired many times, and every morning villagers arrived to draw water for the day ahead. Among them was a man named Haru. For nearly 20 years, Haru visited the well each morning before sunrise. He would lower the bucket into the darkness below, listen for the splash, and slowly pull the water back to the surface. It was a simple task, one he could perform without thinking, and perhaps that was why he often spent the time lost in thought. Haru was known throughout the village as a hard-working man. His fields were neat, his tools were well cared for, his home was orderly. Yet despite these things, he carried a quiet dissatisfaction within him. He often felt that something was missing, something important, something he could never quite name. Whenever he finished one task, another appeared. Whenever he reached one goal, a new one emerged. There was always another problem to solve, another improvement to make, another reason to postpone contentment. One morning, while drawing water from the well, Haru noticed an old traveller sitting nearby. The traveller wore a weathered robe and carried a walking staff polished smooth by years of use. He sat beneath a tree watching the sunrise. Haru nodded politely. The traveller returned the greeting. For several mornings the same thing happened. The traveller sat quietly. Haru fetched water. Neither spoke very much, yet the old man seemed perfectly content simply sitting there, watching the sky, listening to birds, observing the village awaken. Eventually, curiosity overcame Haru. One morning he set down his bucket and approached. "You seem to enjoy sitting beside this well." The traveller smiled. "I do." Haru glanced toward the well. There isn't much to see. The traveller laughed softly. Perhaps Haru sat beside him. The morning air was cool. Mist drifted across nearby fields. The first rays of sunlight touched the rooftops of the village. For a while neither spoke. Then the traveller asked a question. "Why do you come here every day?" Haru looked surprised. "For water?" The traveller nodded. "Of course." Then he asked another question. "And what are you searching for?" The question caught Haru off guard. "I'm not searching for anything." The traveller smiled. "Are you sure?" Haru frowned. The old man continued. "You seem like a man who is always reaching toward something." Haru stared toward the well. Part of him wanted to disagree, yet another part knew the traveller was right. After a long silence, he sighed. "I suppose I am." The traveller waited. Haru looked toward the distant hills. "I always feel that something is missing." The words surprised even him. He had never spoken them aloud before. The traveller listened patiently. "I keep thinking that if I can improve my fields, I'll be satisfied," Haru continued. "Then I improve them, and afterward I find something else to worry about." The traveller nodded. "Then I think perhaps I need a larger house, or more land, or more security." The morning breeze moved gently through the trees. "And when those things come?" the traveller asked. Haru smiled sadly. "I begin searching again." The old man looked toward the well. Then he stood. Slowly, he walked to its edge and peered inside. Haru joined him. The water far below reflected the morning sky. The traveller pointed downward. "What do you see?" "The water. And beyond that?" Haru looked more carefully. His own reflection stared back. The traveller smiled. "For years people have come to this well seeking water." Haru nodded. Yet if someone leaned over hoping to find peace at the bottom, what would happen? Haru laughed. They would be disappointed. The traveller nodded. "Of course." Then his expression softened. Yet many people spend their lives searching for happiness in the same way. The laughter faded from Haru's face. The traveller continued. They search in achievements. They search in possessions. They search in status. The village slowly came to life around them. Smoke rose from chimneys. Doors opened. Birds sang from rooftops. But what they seek cannot be drawn from a bucket. The traveller looked toward the reflection in the water. It cannot be collected. It cannot be stored. It cannot be owned. Haru stood quietly. Something about the old man's words settled deep within him. For years he had searched everywhere except the place he was standing, always reaching outward, always looking beyond the present moment. The traveller placed a hand upon the stone edge of the well. The water was here before you arrived. He smiled gently. And peace often is too. The sun rose higher into the sky. The mist began to fade from the fields. For a long while, neither man spoke. Together they watched the reflection of the morning light shimmer upon the water below. At last, Haru filled his bucket. But this time, he did not hurry home. Instead, he stood for a moment longer. Listening, breathing, watching the sunlight dance upon the surface of the well. The old traveller eventually rose and continued his journey. Before leaving, he offered a final smile. Then he disappeared down the road. Haru remained beside the well. The village bustled around him. Children laughed. Farmers prepared for work. Life moved forward as it always had. Yet something felt different. The dissatisfaction he carried had not vanished entirely. But for the first time, he understood that perhaps the answer was not waiting somewhere beyond the next achievement. Perhaps it had never been missing at all. The ancient well stood quietly beneath the morning sky, and in its still water, Haru saw something he had overlooked for many years. Not a solution, not a destination, but a simple reminder to stop searching long enough to notice what was already there. Our next story follows a traveller who arrives at a mysterious bamboo gate and discovers that the strongest barriers are often the ones we build ourselves. It is called the Bamboo Gate. At the entrance to a remote mountain valley stood a gate made entirely of bamboo. It was neither large nor impressive. No carvings decorated its frame. No guard stood beside it. No walls extended from either side. In fact, there seemed little reason for the gate to exist at all. Beyond it lay a narrow path leading toward a small temple hidden deep within the mountains. Travellers passed through the gate every year. Some barely noticed it. Others paused to admire its simplicity. But there were also those who never passed through at all. Among them was a young traveller who arrived one autumn afternoon. He had journeyed far in search of wisdom. For years he had wandered from village to village, visiting temples and studying under different teachers. Yet despite everything he had learned, he often felt held back by invisible limitations. Whenever opportunities appeared, doubt followed. Whenever new paths opened before him, hesitation arrived. And so, like many travellers, he continued searching. As he approached the mountain valley, he noticed the bamboo gate standing alone beside the road. Something about it caught his attention. It seemed oddly significant, as though it marked the beginning of something important. The traveller stopped before it. Beyond the gate, the path disappeared among trees glowing with autumn colours. A cool breeze stirred the bamboo leaves overhead. The valley looked peaceful, yet for reasons he could not explain, he felt reluctant to continue. He stood there for several minutes, then several more. The gate remained exactly where it was. The path remained open, nothing blocked his way. Still, he hesitated. At last, an elderly woodcutter appeared from the forest, carrying a bundle of firewood. The old man smiled as he approached. "You seem troubled." The traveller laughed softly. "I'm not sure why." The woodcutter set down his bundle. "Then perhaps you should tell me." The traveller looked toward the gate. "It feels strange." "The gate?" "Yes." The woodcutter studied it. Then he chuckled. "It is only bamboo." The traveller smiled. "I know." Yet somehow, knowing did not remove the feeling. The old man sat upon a nearby stone. The traveller joined him. Together they watched leaves drift lazily from the trees. After a while, The woodcutter spoke. "When I was young, this gate frightened me." The traveller looked surprised. "It did?" The old man nodded. "I believed something important waited beyond it. And that frightened you?" The woodcutter smiled. "I worried I wasn't ready." The traveller felt a sudden sense of recognition. The old man continued. "I told myself I needed more experience, more knowledge, more certainty." The traveller listened carefully. "So I waited." The breeze moved through the bamboo. Days became months. Months became years. The traveller stared at the gate. "What happened?" The woodcutter laughed. "One day I accidentally walked through it." The traveller couldn't help laughing too. The answer was so simple it seemed absurd. The old man smiled. "I was carrying firewood. I wasn't thinking, I wasn't analysing, I wasn't preparing." The smile widened. "I simply walked." The traveller looked toward the path beyond the gate. Golden leaves covered the ground. Sunlight filtered through the trees. Nothing about it seemed threatening, yet something inside him still resisted. The woodcutter noticed. "Do you know why gates exist?" The traveller thought for a moment. To separate one place from another. The old man shook his head gently. "Sometimes," then he pointed toward the bamboo structure, "and sometimes they exist so we can notice our hesitation." The traveller fell silent. The words settled into the quiet afternoon air. For years he had imagined that the obstacles in his life were external, difficult circumstances, uncertain outcomes, lack of opportunity. Yet when he thought carefully, many of the barriers he encountered had something else in common. Fear, doubt, assumptions, stories he told himself about what might happen. The gate stood silently before him. It had no lock, no wall, no guard. Nothing prevented him from walking through, except the belief that something prevented him. The realization felt strangely familiar, like remembering something he had always known. The woodcutter rose and lifted his bundle once more. Before leaving, he pointed toward the gate. "Most prisons are built from stone." The traveller nodded. The old man smiled. "But the most difficult ones are built from thought." With that, he continued down the road. The traveller remained alone. The valley grew quiet. Birds moved among the trees. The afternoon sunlight softened into gold. At last he stood. Slowly he walked toward the bamboo gate. His heart beat a little faster. Not because the gate was dangerous, but because he understood what it represented. For years he had stood before similar gates, waiting, preparing, doubting, convincing himself that another day would be better, that another version of himself would be more ready, more capable, more certain. Yet certainty had never arrived, and perhaps it never would. The traveller stepped forward, one step, then another, then another. Within moments he had passed through the gate. That was all. Nothing dramatic happened. No great revelation appeared. The mountains remained mountains. The trees remained trees. The path remained a path. And yet he felt lighter. Because something had changed. Not the world around him. The world within him. As he continued along the forest trail, he smiled. The gate had never been the obstacle. His belief in the gate had been. Behind him, the bamboo structure stood quietly in the fading light. Simple, unremarkable, open as it had always been. And ahead, the path wound deeper into the mountains, waiting patiently for those willing to take the next step. Our next story follows an old boatman who spent his life helping strangers cross a river and discovered that the greatest journeys are often not our own. It is called The Old Boatman. Along the banks of a wide river lived an old boatman who spent his days carrying people from one shore to the other. The river flowed through forests, fields, and distant villages before eventually disappearing beyond the horizon. For generations, travellers had relied upon the boatman's ferry. Merchants crossed with carts filled with goods. Farmers crossed on their way to market. Pilgrims crossed while travelling to temples hidden among the mountains. From sunrise until sunset, the boat moved steadily back and forth across the water. The work was simple. The old boatman would greet each passenger, help them aboard, and guide the ferry across the river. Then he would return for the next group. Day after day, year after year, many people admired his patience. Others pitied him. They imagined such a life must become repetitive. Boring, unremarkable after all, while travellers journeyed toward distant destinations, the boatman remained in the same place. One spring afternoon, a young traveller arrived at the river crossing. He carried a pack upon his shoulders and wore the confident expression of someone eager to explore the world. As he stepped aboard the ferry, he glanced at the old boatman. "How long have you worked here?" The boatman smiled. "Most of my life." The traveller looked surprised. "You've spent all those years crossing the same river?" The boatman nodded. "I have." The young man shook his head. "I don't think I could do that." The boatman pushed the ferry away from shore. The river carried them gently downstream before he adjusted their course. And why not? The traveller looked toward the opposite bank. "There is too much of the world to see." The boatman smiled. "There certainly is." The traveller pointed toward the distant hills. "I want to visit every place I can. A fine goal. I want adventures." The boatman nodded. "Those are wonderful as well." The traveller looked around. "But don't you ever wish you had travelled farther?" The old boatman considered the question. The river moved quietly beneath them. Sunlight sparkled across the surface. For a while, he remained silent. Then he smiled. "I have travelled farther than you imagine." The traveller laughed softly. "Without leaving the river?" The boatman nodded. The answer only increased the young man's curiosity. Before he could ask another question, the ferry reached the opposite bank. The traveller thanked him and continued on his way. Yet the conversation lingered in his mind. Several months later, after visiting distant towns and crossing mountain roads, the traveller found himself returning along the same route. Once again he arrived at the river, and once again the old boatman waited beside the ferry. The boatman greeted him warmly. "You have returned." The traveller smiled. "I have." They set off across the water. This time the traveller spoke first. "I've been thinking about what you said." The boatman raised an eyebrow. "About travelling?" The young man nodded. "You said you've travelled farther than I imagine." The boatman smiled. "And I have." The traveller waited. The old man pointed toward the riverbank. A family stood there, preparing to board the next ferry. Children laughed while their parents gathered supplies. "I carried that family across this river years ago." The traveller listened. The children were infants then. The ferry drifted steadily onward. The boatman pointed farther downstream. "And that merchant." A man guided a wagon along a nearby road. When he first crossed, he owned almost nothing. The traveller watched quietly. Now he supports dozens of families. The boatman smiled. The river continued flowing around them. "I have watched people fall in love. I have watched children grow. I have watched strangers become friends. I have watched grief arrive, and I have watched healing arrive afterward." The traveller remained silent. The old boatman's eyes rested upon the water. For 40 years, people have brought their stories onto this ferry. The breeze moved gently across the river. "I may not have visited every town." The boatman's smile softened. "But I have travelled through thousands of lives." The young traveller felt something shift inside him. He looked around differently now. The ferry was no longer merely a boat. It was a place where journeys crossed paths. A place where beginnings met endings, where departures met arrivals. The old boatman continued. Most people believe that meaningful lives must be large. The traveller listened carefully. They imagined great distances, great achievements, great adventures. The boatman dipped an oar into the water. But sometimes meaning arrives quietly. The river reflected the afternoon sky, one crossing at a time. For the remainder of the journey, neither spoke. There seemed little need. The traveller watched the river, the passengers, the distant shore approaching. Everything felt somehow richer than before. When they reached the opposite bank, the traveller gathered his belongings. Before leaving, he turned toward the boatman. "I think I understand now." The old man smiled. "Do you?" The traveller nodded. "You spent your life helping others continue their journeys." The boatman laughed softly. "And they helped me continue mine." The traveller smiled. Then he stepped onto the shore. As he walked away, he glanced back one final time. The old boatman was already guiding the ferry toward another group of waiting passengers. Back and forth, across the same river. Yet somehow, no two journeys were ever the same. The traveller continued down the road. The afternoon sun warmed his face, and for the first time he understood that a meaningful life was not measured by how far one travelled, but by how deeply one touched the lives encountered along the way. Behind him, the ferry moved steadily across the water. The river flowed onward. And the old boatman continued his quiet work, carrying strangers toward destinations only they could see. Our next story follows a village that awakens after a snowfall and the surprising lesson hidden within the sound of falling snow. It is called The Sound of Falling Snow. In a mountain village where winters were long and quiet, there lived a man who could not bear silence. Whenever silence appeared, he filled it. If he walked alone, he spoke to himself. If he worked in the fields, he hummed songs. If he sat with others, he felt compelled to keep conversations moving. To him, silence felt uncomfortable, empty, something to escape. The villagers often joked that he could speak to a stone and somehow begin an argument with it. The man laughed along with them, yet deep inside he knew there was some truth in their teasing. Being alone with his thoughts made him uneasy, and so he avoided it whenever possible. One winter, after an unusually heavy snowfall, the village became almost completely isolated from the outside world. The roads disappeared beneath deep drifts. Travellers stopped arriving. The nearby river slowed beneath a layer of ice. The entire valley seemed wrapped in white. For several days, snow continued falling, softly, steadily, without pause. One evening, the village elder invited several residents to gather in his home for tea. The talkative man joined them. A fire crackled gently in the hearth. Steam rose from small cups. Outside, snow continued drifting from the dark sky. The villagers shared stories and laughter. Hours passed comfortably. Eventually, the conversation slowed. One by one, people became quiet. The elder sat peacefully beside the fire. The others gazed into the dancing flames. The talkative man shifted uneasily. The silence returned. Almost immediately, he searched for something to say. Yet before he could speak, the elder raised a hand. "Listen." The room became still. The man listened. At first, he heard nothing unusual. The fire crackling, the wind outside, the occasional creak of the old wooden house. The elder smiled. No, his voice was barely above a whisper. Listen more carefully. The room grew silent once again. The man concentrated. For a long moment nothing seemed different. Then, very faintly, he noticed something. A soft sound, almost impossible to hear, delicate, gentle, like a whisper drifting through the darkness. He frowned. "What is that?" The elder smiled. "Snow," the man blinked. "Snow makes a sound?" The elder nodded. "Everything makes a sound." The villagers remained silent. Together they listened, and there it was again. The barely noticeable hush of snow settling upon rooftops, trees and fields. A sound so subtle that it disappeared whenever one tried too hard to hear it. The man sat quietly. For perhaps the first time in years, he stopped trying to fill the silence. Instead, he simply listened. Outside, the snowfall continued. The village rested beneath a blanket of white. The mountains stood hidden behind drifting clouds. The world seemed softer somehow, more peaceful. After a while, the elder spoke again. Most people believe silence is the absence of something. The fire crackled softly, but silence is not empty. The man looked toward the window. Snowflakes drifted through the darkness. The elder continued, "It is full of things we rarely notice." The room grew quiet once more. This time, the man welcomed it. As the evening passed, he became aware of sounds he had overlooked all his life. The rhythm of breathing, the movement of wind against the walls, the settling of wood within the old house, the distant call of an owl somewhere beyond the village. None of these sounds were loud, yet together they formed a kind of music. A music that had always existed. A music hidden beneath constant noise. When the gathering finally ended, the man stepped outside. Fresh snow covered the ground. Moonlight shimmered across the village. The night air felt cold and clean. For a long moment he stood there. Listening, the world had not become silent. It had become alive. The snow continued falling softly from the sky, and for the first time, he heard it, not with his ears alone, but with his full attention. Over the following weeks, something began to change. The man still enjoyed conversation. He still laughed with friends. He still shared stories. But he no longer feared quiet moments. When silence arrived, he allowed it to stay. He discovered that some of life's most beautiful things appeared only when there was enough stillness to notice them. The shape of moonlight on fresh snow, the sound of rain before dawn, the rustle of leaves in an empty garden, the peaceful rhythm of an ordinary afternoon. As winter slowly gave way to spring, the snow eventually melted. The roads reopened, travellers returned, life became busy once more. Yet the lesson remained. The man had spent years believing silence was something missing. Now he understood it was something present, something valuable, something worth listening to. And whenever life became noisy, he would remember that winter evening, the warm fire, the falling snow, and the gentle sound that had been there all along, waiting patiently to be heard. Our next story follows a man who lived in a house without a door and spent years wondering why he felt trapped, until a wandering monk helped him see what had always been in front of him. It is called The House Without a Door. In a quiet valley, surrounded by low green hills, there lived a man who often complained that he felt trapped. His life was comfortable enough. He had food to eat, a small home, friends in the village, and work that provided what he needed. Yet despite these things, he carried a feeling he could never quite explain. Whenever he looked toward the future, he saw limitations. Whenever opportunities appeared, he saw obstacles. Whenever others spoke of change, he spoke of difficulty. Again and again, he told himself the same story. I cannot. I am stuck. There is no way. Over time, these words became so familiar that he stopped questioning them. One spring morning, a wandering monk arrived in the village. The monk carried little more than a walking staff and a small cloth bag. His robe was worn from years of travel, yet his face seemed remarkably peaceful. The villagers welcomed him warmly. That evening, as people gathered in the village square, the man found himself speaking with the monk. Before long, he began sharing his frustrations. "My life feels confined." The monk nodded. "I see. There are things I wish to do." The monk listened. "Places I wish to go." The man sighed, but circumstances prevent it. The monk remained quiet. Encouraged, the man continued, "There are too many obstacles, too many limitations, too many reasons things cannot change." The monk smiled gently. Then he asked a simple question: "Would you show me your home tomorrow?" The request seemed unusual. Still, the man agreed. The following morning, the monk arrived shortly after sunrise. Together they walked through the village. Birds sang from rooftops. A cool breeze moved through the trees. Eventually they reached the man's small house. The building stood beside a narrow path near the edge of the valley. It was simple, but well maintained. The monk studied it carefully. Then he frowned. "Something is strange." The man looked confused. "What do you mean?" The monk pointed toward the house. "It has no door." The man laughed. "Of course it does." He walked to the entrance and pushed it open. The monk smiled. Together they stepped inside. For a while, the monk looked around. The house was comfortable. Sunlight entered through the windows. The furniture was modest but practical. At last, they sat at a small wooden table. The monk poured tea. Then, he asked another question. "Why did you laugh when I said your house had no door?" The man looked puzzled. "Because it obviously does." The monk nodded. You could see it clearly. "Of course." The monk lifted his cup. "And yet yesterday, when speaking about your life, you described many doors that do not exist." The man fell silent. The room seemed suddenly very still. The monk continued gently. "You said there was no way forward. You said there were no opportunities. You said change was impossible." The tea steamed softly between them. "How do you know?" The man searched for an answer. None came. The monk looked toward the open doorway. Many people spend years standing before open doors. The breeze drifted through the entrance. They assume the doors are locked. They assume they cannot pass. They assume the path beyond will be too difficult. The man listened carefully, and so they never try. Outside, clouds drifted slowly across the valley sky. The monk smiled. Eventually, they become convinced they are trapped. The man lowered his gaze. The words felt uncomfortable because they felt true. How many things had he dismissed without attempting? How many possibilities had he rejected before exploring them? How many decisions had been made by fear rather than reality? The monk stood and walked to the doorway. For a moment he looked outside. Then he spoke. "When I was younger, I wished to cross a great mountain range." The man listened. Many people told me it could not be done. The monk smiled softly. So I believed them. The valley breeze moved through the house. For years I carried that belief. The monk looked toward the hills beyond the village. Then one day I met someone who had crossed those mountains. The man looked up. "What happened?" The monk laughed. I realized the barrier had existed only in my mind. For a long while, neither spoke. The morning sunlight slowly moved across the floor. The man thought about his own life, the opportunities he had ignored, the fears he had accepted as facts, the assumptions he had never questioned. Gradually, he began to understand. Not every obstacle was imaginary. Some challenges were real. Some roads truly were difficult. Yet many of the walls he carried existed nowhere except within his thoughts. The realization felt both humbling and liberating. the monk eventually returned to the table. They finished their tea together. Before leaving, the monk offered one final thought. Whenever you feel trapped, look carefully. The man nodded. The monk smiled. You may discover that the door has been open the entire time. Then he rose and continued his journey. The man remained seated for a long while. The house felt exactly as it had before. The village remained unchanged. The valley remained peaceful. And yet something inside him had shifted. Later that afternoon, he stepped outside and began walking. Not because he suddenly knew where he was going, not because every uncertainty had vanished, but because he was finally willing to see whether the door was truly closed. The hills stretched toward the horizon. The path wound gently through the valley, and for the first time in many years, the world seemed a little larger than he had imagined. Our final story follows a lantern returning to the place where its journey began, revealing that the peace we seek is often the very thing that has been quietly guiding us all along. It is called "The Lantern Returned Many Years Had Passed Since the Traveller First Walked Beside the Old Monk and His Lantern." The roads he followed afterward carried him through forests and valleys, across rivers and mountains, into villages both large and small. He met farmers and fishermen, monks and merchants, children chasing fireflies through summer fields, elders sitting quietly beneath ancient trees. Each journey brought new experiences, each season brought new lessons. Yet no matter where he travelled, he often found himself remembering that autumn evening in the forest. The lantern, the bridge, the stream, and the simple words spoken by the old monk. Perhaps the lantern was never for me. At the time, he had understood only a little, but over the years, the meaning continued unfolding like a path disappearing into morning mist. One autumn evening, many years later, the traveller found himself returning to the same mountain valley where his journey had begun. The road looked familiar. The forests remained. The distant peaks still watched over the valley. Even the stream beside the path seemed unchanged. As twilight settled across the mountains, he reached the village. Children played near the houses. Smoke drifted from chimneys. Lanterns began appearing in windows as darkness slowly approached. The traveller paused. Everything felt smaller than he remembered, yet somehow more beautiful. Perhaps that was the way of memory, or perhaps it was simply the way of returning. After finding a place to rest, he asked about the old monk. The villagers smiled warmly. Many remembered him. Some had known him well, others had only heard stories, but all spoke of him with affection. The traveller soon learned that the monk had passed away several years earlier. The news saddened him. Though he had not seen the monk in many years, he had always imagined him somewhere in the mountains, carrying his lantern through the darkness. Now that image belonged to memory. That night, sleep did not come easily, so he rose and stepped outside. The valley lay quiet beneath the stars. A cool breeze moved through the trees, and without fully deciding to do so, he found himself walking toward the forest path. The same path, the same trees, the same wooden bridge crossing the stream. Moonlight filtered through the branches overhead. The forest seemed unchanged despite the passing years. Eventually he reached the bridge. The water below reflected the stars. The traveller stopped. For a long while he stood there listening to the stream. Remembering, then something caught his attention. Beside the bridge stood a small wooden box, weathered by rain and time. Curious, he approached. Inside rested a lantern, simple, paper-covered, very much like the one the old monk had carried. The traveller lifted it carefully. A folded piece of paper lay beneath it. Upon the paper were a few words written in faded ink. For the next traveller. The traveller smiled. The old monk was gone. Yet somehow he was not. the lantern remained, waiting, ready to be carried once more. The traveller lit the lantern, its warm glow pushed gently against the darkness. Then he continued walking along the forest path. The lantern swung softly beside him. For a while he thought about everything he had learned throughout his years of wandering. The moon that could never be reached, the stone that became heavy only because it was carried, the fallen leaves, the river, the tea cellar, the pine tree, the fisherman in the fog, the silent bell, the empty basket, the sparrow, the mountain path, the cherry blossom, the well, the bamboo gate, the boatman, the falling snow, the house without a door. Each lesson had seemed separate at the time, yet now they felt connected, like streams flowing toward the same river, like stars belonging to the same sky. The traveller walked deeper into the forest. The lantern illuminated only a few steps ahead. No more, no less. And suddenly he laughed softly. After all these years, the lantern was still teaching the same lesson. It did not reveal the entire path. It never had. It simply offered enough light for the next step. Nothing more was required. The forest grew quieter, the night deeper. The traveller realised something then. For most of his life, he had searched for peace as though it were a destination, a place to reach, a mountain summit waiting somewhere beyond the horizon. Yet peace had never been waiting at the end of the journey. It had appeared beside rivers, beneath trees, inside tea shops, within silence, inside ordinary moments he once overlooked. The search itself had often hidden what he sought. The realization brought no great revelation, no dramatic transformation, only a quiet sense of understanding, like arriving home after a very long journey. Eventually the traveller reached a small clearing. The stars stretched endlessly overhead. The mountains stood silent around him. There he stopped. The lantern glowed warmly in his hand. For a long while he simply stood beneath the night sky, listening to the wind, watching the stars, breathing the cool mountain air. Nothing was missing, nothing needed solving, nothing needed chasing. The road behind him was complete. The road ahead could wait until morning. And in that simple moment, he felt a peace deeper than anything he had spent years searching for. The lantern continued glowing softly, a small light in a vast darkness, just as it had all those years ago, just as it always would. And somewhere beyond the trees, the stream continued its endless song among the stones. The wind moved gently through the pines. The stars shone quietly above, and the night carried on, calm, still, and complete. And now, our journey through these ancient stories has come to an end. The lantern rests quietly beside the path. The mountains stand silent beneath the stars. The stream continues its endless journey through the valley, just as it has for countless seasons. And somewhere beyond the forest, the first hints of dawn still wait patiently beyond the horizon. But there is no need to think about tomorrow now. Tonight is still here. The stories have been told, the roads have been walked, the rivers have been crossed, and the lantern's gentle light has guided us as far as it needed to. So allow yourself to rest. Allow your thoughts to drift like leaves floating upon a quiet stream. There is nowhere you need to go, nothing you need to solve, nothing you need to carry. The mountains can keep their silence, the stars can keep their watch, and the night can hold everything else until morning. Perhaps the old monk is still walking somewhere beneath the pine trees. Perhaps the fisherman is listening to the sea. Perhaps the tea seller is preparing another cup of tea for a traveller passing through. And perhaps, beneath a sky filled with stars, the lantern still glows softly beside the path, not lighting the entire journey, only the next step, only this moment, only enough. The wind moves gently through the trees, the stream sings softly among the stones, the forest settles deeper into stillness, and the night grows calm around you. Take one slow breath, and let it go. Feel the weight of the day slowly drifting away, like fog lifting from the water, like petals carried upon a spring breeze, like snow settling quietly upon the earth. The journey is complete. The stories can rest now, and so can you. May your sleep be peaceful, may your dreams be gentle, and may you wake with the same quiet calm that has followed these stories through forests, rivers, mountains, and moonlit paths. The lantern grows smaller in the distance. The stars shine softly overhead. The night becomes still. And all is well. Good night.